Right. Well, hi, everyone. I am Maggie Sherwinski, an advocacy manager at the Active Transportation Alliance, and I'd like to introduce you to our speakers today. We've got Maggie Daly Skogsbakken. She's the Chief Communications Officer from Pace Bus. And then Charlotte Obodzinski. She's the Department Manager from the Priority Project Management Office, also from Pace. And then helping today, we've got Crispino Heda Simmons, who is our Planning Project Manager at Active Trans. Feel free during the presentation, we're just getting the PowerPoint up, so feel free to type in any questions you might have for Maggie and Charlotte in the chat box throughout the presentation, and Crispina and I will read through those questions afterwards. And then please, just a reminder to keep yourself muted while they're presenting. But I will hand it over to Maggie.
I'm Maggie Daly Skogsbakken, the Chief Communications Officer for Pace Suburban Bus. With me, like Maggie said, is Charlotte Obodzinski, and I apologize for that. I practiced it even, and I still ruined it.
Okay, you can just still use O'Donnell if you need to.
I will, that would be helpful. You can still use Daly. I'm totally
perfect.
With that. Charlotte is Pace's Department Manager of our Priority Project Management Office. I'm going to give you a quick recap of our response to COVID-19 and how the pandemic has affected our service. Then I'll pass it back over to Charlotte to talk about some more positive news with our capital infrastructure projects and our Pulse program and our 20-year strategic vision plan driving innovation. Most of 2020 was spent in crisis mode, managing the ever-changing landscape of the pandemic. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that the year started off strong and full of promise. Employee morale was great. We were winning awards, and thanks to the Rebuild Illinois bill, we were moving forward on some substantial capital projects and service improvements. We had just dug in on creating an employee-led diversity and inclusion program. We were building out our internal communications platforms, and we were just about to launch a new website.
I think so.
You guys getting sound? I'm sorry about that.
Sounds good, but I can see your presentation mode. Sorry, Maggie.
Let's let it go for now. All right, so this will make everyone else who presents this week feel a little bit better.
No worries. There we go.
And this is
a dangerous virus is spreading rapidly in China, and U.S. officials are very worried that it could come here. China has more than 200 confirmed cases of coronavirus, it's called.
Starting tomorrow evening, Saturday, March 21st at 5 p.m. until the end of April 7th, all our residents will be subject to a stay-at-home order.
So we had to move pretty quickly. We had to keep passengers, employees, and our board in the loop. We knew that people were scared, and we didn't want to add to that fear. We wanted to be forthright, compassionate, and deliberate. Internally, we began simply with frequent emails directly from our executive director and daily, if not more, executive staff meetings. We established 3 principles to guide every decision we made at the beginning of the pandemic: safety, service, and transparency. We considered these 3 principles every step of the way. We began distribution of a weekly media update, which you can see on the screen on the left 2 images. We shared this with the media, but we also shared it with employees, our board of directors, and our peers so that everyone was getting the same information. That was important to stop misinformation and make people confident that what we were sharing was accurate. We use a simple table format. Like you can see, it's not like a typical press release. And it sent it from my direct email. So when people wanted to respond or get information, it was all coming from a single source. We included all the important stuff that we needed communicated, like service changes, precautions, messaging requests, and alerts. Shortly after the pandemic hit, we created a COVID-19 response webpage to house all the pandemic-related information. We were also utilizing our email and social platforms. With safety being our highest priority, we did everything we could to communicate the importance of wearing masks, social distancing, and sanitizing and washing hands. We created a series of graphics, some in partnership with the state of Illinois, APTA, the city of Chicago. These were all blasted out in print and digital formatting. Moving forward, we created videos to communicate all the things we were doing to keep vehicles and facilities clean and what we needed passengers to do to help keep everyone safe. So on screen, you can see in the top left-hand corner, that was one of the first notices we put out. And then next to that, to the right, is the partnership campaign that we had with the state of Illinois and their All in Illinois campaign. You can see one of our bus wraps there. So we were just trying to refresh and put out new graphics and messaging that all pushed the same thing, but kept catching people's eyes. As important as it was to communicate with our passengers and other external stakeholders, we also prioritized our internal communications. From emails and new policies to shows of appreciation, we work to keep everyone on the same page and acknowledge the dedication and hard work of our essential employees. A couple of the ways we did that was to print thank you banners for our divisions and create a Heroes Moving Heroes campaign that's ongoing and is shared on social internally and on board our buses with car cards. About 25% of our passengers throughout the pandemic identified themselves as frontline essential workers, a number of them stating they were hospital workers. We're forever grateful for their sacrifices and for their dedication. As an expression of that gratitude, we coordinated a number of roll-bys to some of the region's hospitals with messages of thanks created by our employees and their children. So next, I just have a little video that kind of shows you that program. Part of our efforts to keep employees engaged and informed, a group of talented musicians who also happen to be PACE employees connected remotely to let everyone know they were missed. In the before times, those employees played at our annual employee picnic. So it was a great way to reconnect with everyone working remotely. So with that, allow me to introduce you to Tony and the Pacemakers.
I've been holding out so long. I've been working at my home. Lord, I miss you.
I've been hanging on the phone. I've been working all alone. I want to see you Well, I love you, lady. You've been starring on my screen, but I miss you, child. I've been waiting in the hall, been waiting on your call, and the phone rings. Some friends of mine that say,
Hey, what's the matter, man? We gonna come around at 12 with some pacemaker fans that just dying to meet you. We gonna bring a case of Sprite. And let's go mess and fool around, you know, like we used to.
So while I was working on communications, our planning and operations teams were contending with staggering ridership drops. I took this clip from the RTA's ridership dashboard. You can see the dramatic dip at the beginning of the pandemic and the roller coaster that followed. Overall, we've been hovering around having about 50% of our average ridership. Weekend service is faring a little bit better. In March and April of 2020, ADA paratransit dropped to about 25% of our typical average ridership, and this has been slowly climbing. In the city of Chicago, we waived our taxi access program fares, which allows ADA paratransit riders to use medallion taxis with no fare for up to a $30 trip. This encourages passengers to use the TAP system and helps us offer single passenger trips on the mainline ADA system, which we're trying to do for as long as possible. In spring of 2020, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, PACE announced the temporary suspension of 73 routes and reductions to another 25 routes. While PACE did formalize the indefinite continuation of these suspensions and reductions, we're hopeful that people beginning to return to work and school and normal activities, that ridership will build. PACE may reevaluate and possibly reinstate some service upon the availability of funding and the return of commuter demand. But in some corridors, we're unsure if it will return. With more people working from home for an indefinite amount of times, perhaps permanently or permanently part-time remote, this could also be an opportunity to realign our services and better serve our region. In addition to ridership impacts, we're monitoring the financial impact of the pandemic. We've lost a lot of revenue and we're spending a significant amount of money. I believe it's closing in on about $1 million at this point on sanitation supplies and PPE. This is sustainable for now, thanks to CARES funding, but we're definitely facing some challenges in the coming years. We think a key part of our recovery will be educating the public about the system's safety and letting them know that we're ready when they are. Another key factor of our recovery is building back a better system, a goal that we've been really advancing over the last few years and kept moving forward over this past year. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Charlotte to talk about some more promising news for PACE's future and the regional infrastructure projects we have in the works. Wrong one. There we go.
Thanks, Maggie, and thank you for recapping all that we've done as an agency to respond to this ever-evolving situation with the pandemic. I think I can speak for everybody in that we are extremely proud of our frontline workers and really respect all the work that everybody's doing at all levels of the agency. At PACE, not only are we responding to our current circumstances, but we're also looking to the future to see how we can continue to improve our transportation system to support the local economy now and in the future. In order to do so, PACE is increasingly asking our municipal partners to invest in transit supportive land use and infrastructure so we can provide the most streamlined and efficient services. And as an agency, PACE is making strides to provide high quality transit service with enhanced amenities to attract these types of investments. Much of this work was a direct result of PACE's Vision 2020 plan to modernize public transportation. Based on this vision, PACE has sought to implement a 24-line bus rapid transit network known as PULSE to enhance mobility and improve suburban travel options. The goal of the PULSE program is to provide fast, frequent, and reliable bus service using the latest technologies and streamlined route design. Out of those 24 corridors that were identified in the plan, 7 priority corridors were flagged for development over the next 10 years. In August of 2019, after years of planning, PACE was very excited to launch our first PULSE line along Milwaukee Avenue, connecting the Jefferson Park Transit Station on the northwest side to the Golf Mill Mall in Niles. We are currently in the design and engineering process for our second line on Dempster Street. And I saw Gina on here, so I would be remiss without mentioning and thanking Trans Systems for your work on working on that project with us and on the Milwaukee line. And then so the Dempster line is going to go from downtown Evanston to O'Hare Airport with the start of construction anticipated for this summer. Our third line along South Halsted between the 95th Dan Ryan Red Line Station and the Harvey Transportation Center is currently in advanced conceptual design and environmental review that is set to wrap up later this year. And that project's actually a joint project with CTA. We are looking north of 95th Street too to do some other bus enhancements. So it's been a very good partnership to date. The Pulse 95th Street line is our final one in near-term implementation, and this line will be entering into NEPA and advanced conceptual design later this year. Work on the remaining 3 priority lines on Cermak, Roosevelt, and Harlem will be forthcoming in the later years of the program. The inaugural Milwaukee Line project helped set the tone for the Pulse program, offering a variety of benefits, including faster bus travel times and greater frequencies, such as 10-minute peak and 15-minute off-peak headways, serving only designated station areas located at approximately half-mile intervals. We also offer connections to major destinations and links to other bus routes and transit services. Bike and pedestrian connectivity and ADA accessibility are all standard on the stations as well. We also have improved reliability due to technologies like transit signal priority, which either gives us a shortened red light or an extended green light when the buses are running behind schedule. The stations are also offer a great amount of amenities such as overhead heat, pavement snow melt systems, real-time information contained in branded vertical markers, and local and regional maps for customer information. In addition to all the station amenities, the service is also operated by a fleet of branded Pulse vehicles, all which are equipped with onboard Wi-Fi and USB charging ports. In addition to the Pulse network, our Vision 2020 plan called for the implementation of a network of 11 expressway-based bus services operating on the region's expressways. PACE is pleased to have implemented this vision with the launch of the Bus on Shoulder program on I-55 and I-94 and a flex lane operation on the Jane Addams portion of the I-90 tollway. We've had the opportunity to bring innovative solutions to Northeastern Illinois with these initiatives, including the region's first inline bus rapid transit station on an expressway at Barrington Road and I-90 in Hoffman Estates. Our staff is working to expand this program on I-294 in conjunction with the tollway's rebuild of the tri-state and has secured state funding for the construction of stations for routes that are going to be utilizing those flex lanes. In 2019, as Maggie alluded to, we were fortunate enough to secure funding as part of the Rebuild Illinois State Capital Bill to improve facilities and garages to support our existing and future services. These projects included the construction of a garage facility in Plainfield that is meant to support our I-55 bus on shoulder operations, a new garage facility in Wheeling to replace our current Northwest Division, which will support the Pulse Milwaukee line and Pulse Dempster line, expansion of River Division out in Elgin to support I-90 express services, improvements to ADA communications technologies, and the construction of transfer locations throughout the region, a joint project with Metra to reconstruct the Harvey Transportation Center, which will serve as a future terminal for the Pulse Halstead line as well as the Pulse 159th Street line, expansion of our North Shore Division, which will support I-94 operations, expansion of our Southwest Division, which will operate future tri-state services, as well as the Pulse 95th Street line. And finally, the construction of expressway-based stations on the tri-state, as I'd mentioned earlier. PACE is very grateful that the state has recognized the importance of our service that we provide and that we play a vital role in the regional economy. As we reflect on all of the work that we've done over the last 20 years as part of the implementation of Vision 2020, we're proud of all that has been accomplished, but we're looking forward to the future with the adoption of our new strategic plan, Driving Innovation. The plan, which is set to be publicly released this spring, contains initiatives for the agency moving forward, such as the continued implementation of the Rapid Transit Program, which encompasses Pulse and those expressway services that I had mentioned, completion of our capital projects through Rebuild Illinois, establishment of more robust service standards, a system-wide restructuring, comprehensive facilities plan to maximize the utility of our new garage expansions, a holistic approach to shared mobility concepts and partnerships, and planning for future propulsion technologies such as battery electric buses and the infrastructure that would be required for those. PACE is very interested in how these initiatives called for in our strategic plan can be coordinated with the great work that all of our regional partners are doing. And we expect to continue to update this plan throughout 2021 as we engage with all of you. We recognize how rapidly the transportation industry is evolving, and we continue to adjust our plan now, and we'll be doing that on an annual basis moving forward. We really look forward to working with the region to implement a world-class transportation system and to bolster economic recovery as we build back better once this pandemic is all behind us. So that is the end of our formal presentation, but we are happy to take any questions that people may have.
All right, thank you, Maggie and Charlotte, for your presentation. And it's clear that Pace Bus is essential to a lot of people right now. And thanks for all of those videos that you've produced. It really shows that. And also great to hear about what's coming down the line. But if anyone does have questions, please add them to the chat box at the bottom of your screen, and Crispina and I can read those off. And I guess in the meantime, I'm kind of curious about a question that I get sometimes from different advocates around the region is what do they do? Like, so I know, like, especially right now, funding is very limited, but you know, in the future, as things start to look better, like what can a community do if they're interested? They want more bus routes in their community, or there's an employer that's interested in working with you to make sure they can get employees to their job locations. Do you have anything you can share about that? Any advice you can give to those listening?
Sure. I'll lead and then let Charlotte back clean up on that. But one of the main things that we do for communities is we have a pretty robust community relations department, and most things start there. That or with our passenger services, like our customer service line. So the best things to do is put it in writing, send us an email, or give a call. So that way it gets sent off to the planners to consider. And even if things might not happen immediately, they keep a file of everything and every request for particular routes and corridors and services to consider, because we do restructure, realign, and evaluate periodically. I would say every division gets it like every 3 years. They'll do an overhaul or a comprehensive look at it. Another way to do it for businesses is to contact our community relations reps directly. All that information is available on our website. And then finally, you know, to talk to your elected officials and your municipal leaders. We need them to be partners too. So if there's needs that aren't being met in your community, we want to work with communities to make that happen. And it might not be a big bus. It might be, you know, a circulator or a smaller vehicle or a van pool program. We have some options because, I mean, we deal with such a diverse landscape throughout the 6-county region that we realize big buses aren't always the answer, and we're trying to fill in those gaps.
And to build upon that too, you know, Maggie C., you hit on an important point, is that resources are scarce. And so while we would like to be everything to everybody, we can't do that without good infrastructure to back us up. So, you know, if you're a municipality that wants bus service, you need to work with us to make sure that your land use is supportive of public transportation. So we can't go into every parking lot. We can't operate into every business campus there is out there. So how can business campuses come to the arterials where we're providing that high quality infrastructure? I think that's imperative along the pulse corridors that have been identified throughout the region. We really want people to look at our expressway-based services and our arterial-based services really as kind of the rails of PACE. And how can you do TOD based along kind of where those rail lines are? You would never ask Metro to divert into a corporate campus. So how can you build to us? And I think it's mutually beneficial for both parties if we can figure out how people can do more of that last mile, last quarter mile on their own volition without having to rely on circulators or micromobility or things of that nature.
Great, thank you.
We've got a couple of questions in the chat now. We have a question from Barb. Will the 696 line be reevaluated going to Harper College?
Maggie, do you want to handle that one?
Yeah, I was gonna be vague answer. Yes, it will be, but when, I can't give specifics. So what our planners are doing is they're talking to schools. So they're talking to Harper College, them and our community relations rep. They're talking to businesses, they're talking to municipalities, and then they're monitoring traffic and talking with some of our peer agencies to see if there's upticks in car traffic, if the corridor is building, you know, if congestion is building. So we're going to reevaluate and keep an eye on everything that's suspended right now. But we can't promise it'll come back because it might, the ridership demand might not be there, but we are watching it. And if people feel that they're starting to go back and we're not keeping up pace with that, like also email us or call us and let us know, like, Harper reopened. I mean, because we are talking to Harper, but the more streams of information that we get, the better it is for us, so that we have our eyes on what needs to be watched.
And then another question from Robert here is about Roosevelt Road Pulse Route. When will it be getting started, and how far does it go into DuPage County?
Thank you for that question. So Roosevelt Road, so we know what the sequencing of our first 4 are going to be. Those last 3, we're trying to figure out how we're going to sequence those into the program with an eye on regional equity. So we do recognize that we've kind of hit the north suburbs, we're hitting the south suburbs with the next 2. And so I think in DuPage County, I think we're going to be doing Cermak first, and then Roosevelt. And so really the extents of those in the early planning stages for Roosevelt Road would be the Forest Park Blue Line station on the eastern end, and then the western terminus somewhere around Yorktown Center. But that's very loose and very early. We need to go through the project definition phase for that work. And at this point, we don't have funding to do that planning work. Right now, we're funded up to really getting the 95th Street NEPA work done. And then beyond that, it's really going to be doing the project definition for Cermak. That's really good. That's at least initially right now, that's 5th in line. And then slot 6 and 7 is still up in the air, if I'm being completely honest.
We have a question from Kyle. With the expansion of logistic warehousing in the South Suburban region, specifically Country Club Hills, Matson, Markham, are there any plans for new lines in these areas?
I can start with that one. So we have worked with a lot of these companies in the past in partnership. So Amazon, UPS, stuff like that, where we will partner with them to provide service for their employees based on their shifts. It is open to the general public, but it is timed so that it accommodates their workforce. So there's not, I couldn't tell you the routing right now or what will happen, but yeah, we'll keep working with them and as they get their businesses up and running to see what works best. To be quite honest, though, just to manage expectations, like, we're facing some significant financial impacts. So, launching new service that we already don't have the funding for is going to be a hurdle every time. But we're open to it. We're at the table for all that stuff.
And we do look for partnerships too. We do have some tailored service for UPS, and that's something that they supplement. And so that's been a long-standing partnership with PACE and that organization. Maggie, I don't know if you can speak to, I don't know if we have any of those arrangements necessarily set up with Amazon at this point.
We do.
We do. So that is something beneficial, but getting back to the funding part, that still takes operators, that still takes vehicles, that still takes garage space. So I mean, this is all, it's a ripple effect. It's not just that they can sign a check and everything's hunky dory. There's a lot that goes into that. So and again, it gets back to being everything to everybody. Is these warehousing districts are moving far out into the periphery. Those are vehicle miles that are going on our vehicles. And then my apologies, I had a train of thought, but I'm having work from home brain, my apologies. But it's oh, I know what I was gonna say. It's also one of the other things that's difficult about serving those types of uses are the hours. With the UPS partnership, we're very tailored to their shift times. We could be in some situations where our division's not open that late. And we're trying to serve people who are getting off of work at 12 a.m. or 3 a.m. and it just doesn't line up with what we're set up to do either. So it is something that we constantly have to evaluate.
Thanks, Charlotte and Maggie. Another question is, I guess, about air filters. Are there, have there been or will there be improved air filters for buses like Metro has done?
Yeah, so the standard hospital grade filter, I believe, is MERV 13. And on our board, our buses, we currently have MERV 9 and 11. The material to upgrade to MERV 13 is difficult to get. That's where we've been struggling with trying to publish information about, how and when we would upgrade it. But that's the end game, is to get it up to that level. But right now they have been improved. So all of our existing buses had MERV 9 filters. All the new buses we were getting in, and we have gotten in over the last year, have had MERV 11, and then we've been replacing the MERV 11 as we can get the materials. But my understanding is they're having difficulty getting those materials, especially for a fleet like ours, because we have to buy in a way that allows us to customize them for the different types of vehicles we have and the different systems that we have on board. But yeah, like, they're keeping an eye on it and buying it as it becomes available.
We have a question from Andrew. I know that the North Shore Transit Coordination Plan has temporarily been suspended due to COVID-19 pandemic. However, are there any updates?
The last update I heard is that we were still just kind of keeping it on ice for now. Maggie, I don't know if you've heard anything else.
No, it's the same there. We probably wouldn't start working toward the goals of that plan probably until ridership starts to pick back up again.
All right, and then I guess this is more of a comment from Patrick from Schaumburg. For Barb, the Schaumburg Dial-A-Ride is still serving Harper. The Schaumburg DART can take 2 from Harper to any location within the Schaumburg Village limits. This includes Pace's Northwest Transportation Center.
Oh, thanks for that, Patrick.
I guess another question for you is there anything advocates can do to support PACE, to support what you're doing? Do you have any suggestions? I
do. I have plenty of suggestions, but some of the main ones are, we ask that those who are with, that are our partners and transit advocates, lead by modeling, which I'm pretty sure all of you are. And that means wear a mask, wash your hands, practice social distancing, be the role model. That's huge for us right now. The other thing is to, maybe sign up to follow things from the American Public Transportation Association, APTA. APTA does a great job at leading our advocacy, especially when it comes to federal funding. And you can also contact your local electeds, your municipalities, leaders, organizations, and let them know that you think public transit is important and that it's going to be a key part of our nation's economic recovery, and that you support it and you want us to have strong infrastructure and a strong public transit system. Letting your officials know helps us, because they're the ones that give us our funding for the most part, beyond our fare revenue.
Thanks. I actually sorry, go ahead, Charlotte.
Sorry, I was just going to build. So I'm a land use planner by trade, so I'll talk about land use till I'm blue in the face. But one of the things I would also add is, if you haven't already, please take a look at our website and look up our transit supportive guidelines, because that's something that can be, added into your municipal code. We, as part of our transit supportive guidelines program, we also have the draft program, which is we have an engineer on PACE's team that will review any development plans within your municipality to let you know how transit elements can be incorporated to support bus service. So that's kind of one of those low-hanging fruit things that's out there. It's a free service that we are ready and willing to give to anybody. So please do that if there's a development in your area that needs bus service, and figure out how we can bring the development to the bus.
Great. I think I just found that resource and pasted it
Nice.
in the chat, but we can email it to everyone too, because that's
Thank
a
you.
really great resource to know about. And I also added a link to a petition that we have that's about it's to get more federal funding for operations for transit. So not just the capital improvement, but operations, which can be sometimes difficult to find funding for. And that's what's really needed, especially right now. And then just looking at the split of how much funding do roads get versus transit, and changing that formula. So that petition is an easy way to directly contact your elected officials at the federal level. And I
We
think,
have another question that came
Okay.
in, last question from Charlie. Is the dumpster poll still on track?
Yes. We have actually at our board meeting coming up this week, we are going to be awarding the contracts for our vertical markers and our shelters for that program. Trans Systems, as I said, is also working on the construction engineering for the actual station platforms. So we're kind of dubbing it the civil work that's associated with that project, and that's going to go out on the street next month, I think. So that's moving along nicely. We are procuring the vertical markers and the shelters ahead of the civil work because lessons learned from Milwaukee line, those were some long lead items and that kind of dragged the construction schedule down. But we are anticipating on breaking ground on that project this summer. And that's being funded, thankfully, through a CMAQ grant. So that funding is secure and not going anywhere, even despite the pandemic. So.
all right, so I think those are all of the, oh, no, another question just popped up. And then we can wrap up. So another question from Robert. We have a 330 unit development coming near our Villa Park Metro train station. And I've tried to get Pace Route 313 changed. Who is the name of the engineer? Or who can Villa Park contact, I guess?
A great place to start would be with Steve Weinstock. So Robert, if you want to email me, I can put my email address in the chat and we can definitely put you into contact with the right person.
Yeah, it would be the engineer, and I would also make sure to loop in our community relations rep for the area. I can't remember exactly who is our rep for Villa Park, but I'll get that info to Charlotte as well to share with you.
Great, thank you. I think that wraps up our session with you. There's Charlotte's email. So thank you, Maggie and Charlotte, so much for taking the time to share all of your updates about PACE with everyone and answering these questions. It was very, very helpful, and we'll be following up with everyone. There's Maggie's email also in the chat. We'll follow up after this week with the recording of this if you wanted to rewatch it, and we'll send out some of the resources that Maggie and Charlotte mentioned. And also,
I'm happy to edit out all of my errors in the beginning.
Okay, yeah, we can try to make some adjustments. So thank you again both so much for taking the time.
Happy to be here. This was great. We appreciate everyone attending. Please stay safe. Please wear a mask. And we appreciate everything Active Trans does and your partnership in our work. So thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye.